become the market's front-facing reality. So let's say something happens which causes this, which causes this. You're predicting, to the third order consequence. When the third order consequence of prediction happens, you have to sell because it's happened, right? Markets look to the future. So, okay, let me do a drawing here. This thing happens, which causes this, right? So you're predicting that this will happen. Let's say this actually played out. It's now happened. The market's now looking to the next thing. And if you're not looking ahead, you're going to be stuck here and you're going to lose money. You need to keep looking ahead. What's the next thing? What does this cause? And then what does this cause? And what does this cause? The universe is an endless cause. The universe is an endless cause and effect. Everything that has happened was caused by something that happened before it, and everything that will ever happen will happen because something caused it now. Okay? It's just an endless cause and effect. So you buy here, predicting this, and then when you get here, you sell, predicting the next cause and effect. And it's just an endless loop of predicting the future and selling when it becomes the present. Or selling when it fails to become the present and you no longer think it's going to happen. Okay? Now, I think there was a couple other points as well. Some books about this. When the market looks weakest, when the news is at the worst, when bearish prognostications are most general, is the time to buy, as every schoolboy knows. But if a man has in mind a picture of a flood of stocks pouring out from the four quarters of the globe with no buyers because of some desperately bad news which is just coming over the ticker, it is almost a mental impossibility for him to get up the courage to plunge in and buy. Okay? So the first sentence is the key here. When the market looks weakest, when the news is at the worst, that's the time to buy. Okay? Because why is that? It's because the narrative, the story of everything being bad and the world ending is at its point where it's most strongest. And like we said, the market is forward-looking. If the bad news has already played out and everyone understands it, what's the next thing? Is it good news? Oh, well, you probably should be buying. In the market, you are nothing but a chip on the tide of events. Optimism then must consist in believing not that the tide will continually flow your way, but that you will succeed in floating with the tide. So yeah, you can't, force what the market's going to do. You can't make a coin go up. So what I do is I approach the market without bias. I don't know where the market's going to go. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't even really make much of a prediction on things. I just like to flow with where it looks like the market is going to go. Not based on what I would like to see happen, but based on what it looks like is going to happen. It's a very important distinction there. So I don't look for a coin and justify some reason that it's going to go up. Like, I'm going to come up with some fake analysis, like narrative. No, like I keep an open eye and I look for things, and if I find a coin and the narrative builds in my mind and I can understand, this thing actually has potential, then I'll look into it and maybe consider buying it. But it's because I'm really convinced on the narrative, not hoping that it has a narrative, but finding it. I can't force a flower to grow, but I can plant the seed and let it blossom, I guess, is another way of looking at it, right? I can't force finding a good 100x coin. People are always like, Daniel, when's the next coin? When are you going to find the next coin? Like in my mastermind, I'm like, I don't know. I'll know it when I see it. I'm not trying to rush it. I could easily rush and tell everyone to buy like another fucking coin and then lose everyone money, but that's not good. I would rather just go with the flow. When an opportunity presents itself, oh great, boom. I guess same sort of thing with dating, right? It's like, if you try to force a girlfriend, you're never going to get one. But if you're just existing in the world, doing your thing, you're just eventually going to run into one, and it's just going to work it's going to work way better. Okay, you can't force, please be my girlfriend, please be a 100x coin, please. The market is like a girl. If she sees that you're too desperate, she will not give you money. She will not do anything with you, okay? And another quote is, extreme prices will come at the time when the news is most emphatic and most widely disseminated. When that point is passed, the question must always be, what next? So, for example, Toshi went to like $100 million market cap, and I told everyone, I think it's going to go down like 60 to 80%. And I'll show you on the chart here. I was like, guys, I think it's going to go down a lot. And it went down from $100 million market cap to like 35 or something. It went down. What's that? I'll do some drawings for you. Let's see how much it went down. But yeah, it went down a lot, and I told everyone, guys, I think it's going to go down like quite a bit. And they were like, why is that? No, it looks so bullish. And I said, it's because Twitter has completely understood the thesis. Twitter, like everything that I was waiting for, the market understands. Right? I don't want to be holding something that the entire market completely comprehends and understands. I want to hold something that the market doesn't yet understand. And so I said to people like, look, we're still early. I think we you know, like eventually Coinbase retail is going to come in and they're going to love the thesis. But at least for where we are in the market right now, we've widely and fully disseminated the thesis. And that's why it went down, right? Everyone in crypto understood this. Everyone out of crypto hasn't understood it yet, but they're too early. They're not in the market yet. Coinbase hasn't got all the users yet. You know, the whole thing hasn't played out yet. And so let's talk about trends to coins analysis. So there's two types of narratives. There's like the overarching trend. So for example, like, you know, you've got like sector specific trends. So like the layer ones, or, you know, AI is a narrative, right? You've got the GameFi narrative, right? There's like the trends. And then you've got the coin specific narratives. So for example, you know, we've got the Coinbase adoption. So Coinbase is the macro sort of like the trend. You know, it's the fact that Coinbase is going to win this bull run. And then you've got like the base trend. So like the base blockchain is going to get a lot of users. What do you buy? And then you've got the coin within the trend. So the coin within the trend is Toshi, right? Solana versus Ethereum. So, you know, that's a whole narrative. You know, like layer ones. You know, like one of the narratives is layer ones. Well, Solana's a layer one. And then within this layer one sort of trend is the specific coin of Bonk. Okay, the highest beta exposure to, you know, the Solana layer one getting adoption. Okay. And one thing to keep in mind is that with all these sectors, without any real world adoption, how do you value these things? How do you value what a crypto is worth? Well, the value in crypto is derived from what could happen. It's all about what could this thing be worth in the future. Okay. And so that's why we talk about this speculative premium term. The speculative premium term is referring to like, how much more is this thing worth than it's probably worth? Like, this thing's probably worth $1, but it's trading at 10. Why is that? Well, there's a speculative premium. People think it's going to be worth 20 when it gets mass adopted. And so thus, because there's no real value and it's all just a big speculative premium bubble, we have to base our valuations off of the narrative and the story of what seems possible. So when you buy a coin and everyone thinks it's dead and, you know, the people are least bullish and the story behind it is really bad, but you can see that there's an underlying future where it could be better, that's the point with which you buy. And the vice versa is when you have a picture in your mind of the narrative and that narrative fully plays out, like the quote says, you need to ask yourself, what's next? You know, once the best part, once everything's been digested, what's next? Markets are forward looking. Okay, so how do you actually do advanced narrative analysis now that we've covered the fundamentals? Just, again, like I said at the start of the video, it's hard. It's really, really hard. You can't learn this stuff overnight. I've been doing crypto for 6 years, 3 years full time. I'm still not like an expert at this stuff. Okay, it's really hard. So you're not going to be, there's no amount of video course that I could give you that fucking will turn you into a pro. Okay, it's going to take years. But over time, you'll gain an understanding for what a good narrative is and what a bad one is. But here's some like general guidelines that you can follow. I guess some general questions that you can ask yourself when analyzing and looking for narratives. So when you're buying a coin, let's say you buy it at the beginning of a bull run. The goal is that you sell it at the end of the bull run, right? When you sell, someone else is buying. So you have to ask yourself, who is buying from me if I'm selling? What does that person look like? How smart are they? What are they like? What coins do they usually pick, you know, in this period of the market cycle? Like, let's say you sell it at the end of the bull run. What do people usually like at the end of the bull runs? Well, they usually like meme coins. layer ones, and Ponzi schemes. Okay, so, like, when you're coming up with a narrative, you got to think about, what are they going to like the most? What really appeals to retail? They love meme coins, so maybe you should, buy some meme coins. Another question is this narrative a second or third order consequence? So let's say you come up with a narrative because you saw it on Twitter, and it talks about, let's say you bought Toshi at $100 million market cap, right? And you saw that the narrative was fully priced in. Everyone on Twitter was talking about it. That's not a narrative that you want to buy, because everyone has priced in, at least at that point, the story. Now, if the story plays out, that's a different story, right? Because then it actually is playing out. Or if the narrative goes more advanced, then it's a different story. But like, if you go on Twitter and you see someone talking about a particular narrative, but that narrative is happening right now, then it's not really useful. Like, let's say, for example, someone says, this coin has a bright future because it has lots of users. Why is something having a lot of users good for its future? It's not. Having more users coming in the future is a narrative. This thing is going to go from 100 to 10,000 users. That's a narrative. But this thing has a lot of users is not a narrative. That's a played out narrative, right? If you buy because something has an attribute now, you're buying someone else's once second or third order consequence, and they're selling to you. So let's say you buy something because it has a lot of users. Someone sold it to you because they speculated that it was going to have a lot of users. And then they're getting out when their thesis plays out, and you're getting in when their thesis is played out. You're entering for the same reason, but you're doing it one person wrong, one person right. Another thing is, did you identify this narrative online, or you came up with it yourself? Is it priced in? So if you go on Twitter to come up with your narratives, you have to understand everyone has already seen what that narrative was. It's probably mostly priced in. The best narratives are the ones that you can come up with. It took me like 4 or 5 years to get to a point where I can come up with my own narratives. So if it's your first year in crypto, well, fuck, you got a long journey ahead of you. It's going to be hard. The best investors come up with their own ideas. And let me show you one. Let me show you a really great investor. This was from middle of last year. Kobe basically predicted the entire, December/January of 2023/2024. He said that he'd be interested in longing Solana. He said that Bitcoin ETF will get approved. He talks about how GBTC has a lot of people who want to sell, so the price is going to go down after the ETF gets approved, because all the GBTC holders are going to sell because they finally are no longer at a discount. And yeah, he was saying it's going to be sell the news, and the buyers of the ETF are going to be down like 15%. Everything he said 7 months ago played out. He was able to do this because he did advanced narrative analysis. He did second and third order consequences. Because he's just been in crypto so long, he can know which scenario is the most likely to play out. And he's able to do this because he's good at what he does, right? He's been in the market for like a decade. He's seen everything. He just gets it. He's developed that pattern recognition database that we talk about. And I bet you this was just a tweet that he wrote up. Sorry, not a tweet. I bet you this was just a message that he wrote up in like 10, 20 minutes. I bet you he didn't put hours of research into this. This was just his like intuition. This was his hunch. Okay? How likely is this narrative to play out or get close to playing out? So let's say you come up with a narrative, but it's super unlikely. It just doesn't make any sense. That's not a good narrative. How likely is Coinbase to win the bull run when Binance and FTX have basically both gone to shit, and there's no other decent competitors in the market? How likely is Coinbase to send all its users to Base if they've publicly stated and privately stated in internal and external company documents that that is their plan? How likely is an ETF to get approved when the smartest ETF TradFi people say it has a 90% approval rate? How likely is Toshi to go up if it's the main beta play that has performed well already on its chain? You can see that the likelihood of this scenario playing out is incredibly high. Meanwhile, when I bought it at a $2.5 million market cap, the market was priced